Alright, last week ahead of the month, and the next one is shaping up to be quite a busy one, as April Fools already started in the game. We get a Dungeon Rush bonus event next week, as well as a balance patch alongside the return of the Super Adventure Box Festival the week after. And then we also get 1 week of no-downstate in World vs. World. The April Fools event kinda bumped up the price of Tiger's Eye Pebbles, and although they're already back on their way down, they could be a nice farm if you want a bit of a change of pace, as you need them for the Chatoyant Elixirs, which are used to unlock the new invisible cape, an infusion that lets you see a massive cat just about everywhere you go, and a golden sink for your homestead. Now there's 2 ways you can actually farm the pebbles. Either you kill specific mobs around Tyria, or you could mine copper, which would probably be the worst of the two, as there is only a random chance of getting a pebble, and copper is pretty much worthless in and of itself. Now, I do expect the price to keep falling, as everyone who wants them will eventually unlock the new cosmetics, and there's no real rush, as you can access the vendor at any given time in the Cave in Lion's Arch with all of the other festival vendors. As for the upcoming events, there's not that much preparing you can do either. The Dungeon Rush one is usually nice to stack up on Tales of Dungeon Delving to either use in Generation 1 Legendaries or cosmetic unlocks later on, and if you already have enough of them right now, you don't even need to wait to unlock the cape that was added last year, as they made the merchant permanently available in that same cave. And the same kinda goes for SAB, as the festival currency is a Kanban, so there's no way you can stack up on them through the TP. Instead, you're gonna have to earn the rewards by going through a couple of jumping puzzles each day, which I actually highly recommend, as it's one of the most unique and probably one of the most fun festivals we have. And the rewards themselves are pretty decent as well. Just note that the Trader's Generation 1 chest has nothing to do with Generation 1 Legendaries. It's just another festival skin, so don't get your hopes up there. What I do want to talk about are the Amalgamated Gemstones though, as they shot up in price a couple of months ago following the introduction of the Jantier Legendary Spear, and they seem to hold pretty steady, as we probably will need them for the Legendary Backpack in a couple of months. Now first about the backpack. There's currently no other legendary trinket or armor you can buy on the trading post, and I would assume the backpack will get the same treatment. But if ArenaNet were to make it available for purchase, they'd probably sell quite expensively early on. Again, small chance, but it's a non-zero one. But back to the gemstones, because even if you don't need them, you don't want to sell them right away either. Instead, you're gonna want to complete one of the hearts in each of the Jantier wild zones and trade them in for up to 7 discounted shards of that respective zone per week. That way, you can turn a 1 gold and 25 silver gemstone into an item worth well over 2 gold for almost no effort. And if you really don't want to do the hearts, you can do a couple of rifts instead, which count as events and will therefore reward you with the tokens to skip the hearts altogether. Now, if you want to know about the easiest hearts, then the one near the arena in the lowland shores is probably the fastest one if an event is ongoing. And if you want something even lazier, you could instead run around petting warclaws and cleaning up after them. In the Jantier Sentry, you're probably gonna want to do the one in the northeast, as there you can run over burning piles with your warclaw to progress the heart, while you're moving between packs of mobs, which you can kill for even faster progress. And speaking about rifts, this week we get to hunt Fireheart Rise, Drytop and Auric Basin along the usual ones in Soto and Jantier. And Fireheart Rise offers some pretty decent rewards until they roll over on Thursday, after which is gonna be Bauble Week in Auric Basin. And this Bauble Week, or half week rather, is one of my favorite when it comes to efficiency by the way, as every single tier 1 rift spawns really close to a waypoint. And I've already explained this in my rift farming video before, but it's ideal to stick to those because the amount of rifts you can farm in an hour will directly impact how much gold you're gonna be making. And since they're in Auric Basin, you can also repeat the Octovine meta every 2 hours, which is gonna net you around 50 blue and green units, as well as around 10 yellow ones, which means you're gonna get a fair amount of Lucent Modes and Ectos extra, assuming you're savaging them with the right kits. Every single of the rift hunting rewards will be pretty good too, by the way, as you can directly sell the baubles to a vendor, which means that this is one of the most direct gold farms in the game, and the rift essences can either be exchanged for writs for daily crafting bags, or if you don't mind an extra step, could be consumed for Imperial Favor to either craft Generation 3 precursors or Generation 3 legendaries. Now, if the latter is a bit too much, I'd recommend sticking to the precursors, as almost every single ingredient can be purchased off the trading post, except for that Imperial Favor, the spirit shards and about 500 research nodes. But the good news is that if you rift farm, you're also gonna get all of the spirit shards you will need. The spirit shards themselves could alternatively also be used to upgrade tier 2 bones and fangs, or a couple of the tier 5 materials, putting their value at around 50 silver to a bit over 1 gold per shard, depending on which of the materials you choose to go for. Now, if you remember last year's episodes, these values used to be a good bit higher, and that's because quite a few tier 6 materials tanked in price. There are still some exceptions to this, like the Vicious Fangs, who almost doubled in value, and the Scales, who stayed nearly the same. But some of the others dropped by 20% or even 50% over this past year. To explain how this happened, we need to look at their supplies, as just for about every single one of them, there is currently a massive oversupply. Even for the fangs that actually only shot up after a massive supply drop, as there's currently still about 5 fangs listed per single one ordered on the trading post. So it doesn't seem to me like these will go anywhere anytime soon, unless again ArenaNet will reintroduce a sync. But since most of the new legendaries require condensed gifts of might and magic, less are needed compared to when we used the classic gifts. And we now even need less of those, as the legendary starter kits let you pick either of them, causing the demand to fall even lower. Now, despite all of this, there's still some of the most valuable items to farm for, but those old mob farms I used to post aren't worth doing anymore. Instead, it's better to amass as much volatile magic as possible and spend that on trophy shipments. My favorite way of going about this are still the daily IBS 5 strikes and running around the Biora marches, gathering Eternal Eyes and opening chests. And there's actually a trick to get more Eternal Eyes per node that I often talk about on stream, but I don't think I've ever mentioned in a video. See, every single one of those nodes operate in a very specific manner. Assuming 3 strikes, the first and the third item will always be junk, and the second one will always reward you with 1 to 8 Eternal Eyes. Now, if you were running a Glyph of Bounty and an item booster and you were to get a bonus strike, that 4th or 5th item is also guaranteed to be junk. So in other words, only the second item you will ever get from any of these nodes will be Eternal Eyes. But we can game the system, because if you cancel your gathering animation after your second hit, you're still gonna get your Eternal Eyes, but that internal counter will reset even if it's on the same node. So if you then start gathering again and you do get a bonus strike from either your glyph or your item booster, that second item will be Eternal Eyes again. And if that happens, you want to cancel the cast again, by the way, because if you're truly lucky, you could get another 2 hits in for even more Eternal Eyes. And if you want even more volatile magic after all of this, you'll probably want to get a Glyph of Volatility and run around maps gathering nodes. Living World Season 4 maps will probably be the best, as each of their respective nodes also gives you a bit of volatile magic per gather, and those items can then also be consumed for even more volatile magic. Alternatively, you could also opt to equip the glyph on your sickle and run around areas that contain a ton of plants, as those will grant you 6 volatile magic per swing instead of the usual 2 for ores and wood. Now, I also feel like I need to point out that you will never want to buy a Glyph of Volatility from the trading post, as it's gonna set you back well over 600 gold per glyph. Instead, you're gonna want to convert gold to gems and buy any of the sets that come with 3 glyph selection containers. Right now, those are actually on sale for just over 2000 gems, which is a little over 1.2k gold, and I know that's a fairly substantial amount, but for the price of 2 glyphs on the trading post, you can now get an extra glyph as well as 3 infinite gathering tools, which in the worst case you can equip on an alt if you don't want to swap tools every single time you play another character. And then lastly, the Blackline chest contents rotated, and you can now get the Synergetics headphones to listen to some tunes while slaying dragons in a high fantasy setting. But more importantly, the Ice Reaver and Collapsing Star skins got taken out, which means they got more expensive to unlock. Instead, now you can get the Steel Lotus and the Paladin's Decree skins, and while the latter are still quite expensive, the Steel Lotus ones will only cost you around 41 gold per ticket when you're instant buying them. And since the vintage boxes cost around 47 to 55 gold, you should be able to either unlock them for free or at worst spend only a couple of gold for a full extra skin set. Now you could also still trade in your tickets for the Imperial Everbloom set, which hasn't been taken out of rotation just yet, so that's still something long-term investors could consider. Anyway, that's it. I wasn't able to stream last week due to some health issues, but I'll be back tomorrow for the usual Tuesday till Sunday schedule. And if you want to help me and the content I'm making out, then dropping by on stream would massively help me, even if you put it on a second monitor while you're doing something else.